Good morning. Good afternoon. Having some mouse issues, computer mouse issues, but my mouse broke. It fell on the ground and it broke, but I have a spare. So, good afternoon, everybody. We are getting down to it. This Friday is exam number 2. And then after that, all that remains to do is your final projects. And a lot of grading on my part. This week, there is one more lesson in the project workbook on the LA River project, but it has to do with sharing your work online. And we've done enough of that. So this week in lab is going to be free time, your work time to work on your projects. And so the sign-up sheet is there. Sign up for a time slot to come on in. I'll be there for most of the day. May be coming in and out, but I'll be there most of the day, and be there to help you and to bounce ideas off of and all of that. So the lab will also be open tomorrow afternoon if you guys want to take advantage. Hannah will be able to open the lab. So I will take a look at the sign-up sheet in the morning and let Hannah know. If nobody signed up, I'll tell her that that nobody signed up, so she doesn't have to come if she's got something else that she needs to do. So if you want to use the lab tomorrow afternoon, please sign up so I know that you're coming and I can tell Hannah. All right, let's take a look at the review slides, the summary slides that are posted for you guys. There we go. All right, gang. So there's a link on Sakai to these slides. Do you remember where to find that? Oops, what the heck? There we go. Oh. Wow, I can't remember my password. There we go. So my wheel doesn't work on this mouse. I have just a whole bunch of defective mice. So in week 12, actually, this is in every week of the semester under lessons. Week 12 is where we are right now, and the exam's this Friday. Link to the replay of video lessons. Here's the link to this PowerPoint that I'm showing you right here. And I have one here that, you know, if you're trying to do a good job on your final project, what you should really achieve by the end of this week is have a topic selected, have a question in mind, and have some data by the end of this week. We have what I think is plenty of time. You have plenty of time to do this, but if you aren't staying on top of it, you know, we're getting close to the end of the semester. And I put some links in here to some data sources that we were exploring recently. These are sources for raster data. If you're looking for vector data, get a good idea of what you want to look for, formulate some search terms, and then do a Google search. And you know, good keywords to use are, you know, the file format. So if you're searching for, you know, polygons for hospitals in West Virginia, search for hospital West Virginia shapefile or hospital West Virginia feature class, and see what's out there. I bet things like that you'll be able to find. So, but I'm giving you some links here for some raster data. So let's take a look at this. I made some more changes this weekend and just a few additions. But I added this slide. This part one and then part two to sort of separate the material from the first test and the second test. So that from everything here on down, this is the focus of the exam I'm going to give you on Friday. Definitions, tools that we used. There's a bunch of raster tools that we studied. What is a digital elevation model? This is the Grand Canyon, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so this is northwestern Arizona. It's the Grand Canyon, digital elevation model of Grand Canyon. These products you can make with digital elevation models, or DEMs, that we explored in the Vineyard project. Managing workflows. We talked about Model Builder the most, but there's other tools too, like task. Making tasks to manage workflow, and you can also do Python scripting. But we didn't do very much at all with those latter things, but they're good to know about. Model Builder. If you see a picture like this, you should know what the nodes in this Model Builder represent. Data inputs, tools, outputs, parameters. Here's some more ArcGIS tools. These are, so there's a tool that you guys needed to be able to use for the Appalachian Trail question I posed to you in the practical last week, the simplified polygon tool. And these are two other tools that we used in that Vineyard project when we were trying to find suitable planting sites in that Vineyard data. So I think when we used this tool, extract by mask. It's very similar to doing a clip on a raster, but with this extract by mask tool, you can actually make the we used a polygon, so we clipped out a portion of a raster using a polygon. But you can actually use another raster to extract part of another raster. I think we did that actually. We used the NAPE data as a mask when we were trying to look at surface cover data, land cover data. What is a mosaic? It's a compilation of multiple rasters weaved into one. So you should know the definition of mosaic. More tools. I put in some slides on Landsat. What is it? What's the Landsat program? What kind of data are these satellites returning to Earth? What's the resolution? And so Landsat 8 has these 8 spectral bands, but they are not all. Most of them are 30-meter resolution approximately, which means every cell, i.e., pixel, in a Landsat image, which is also called a scene, represents an area of about 30 meters by 30 meters on the surface of the Earth. But there is a band 8. It's called the panchromatic band. It's a fancy way of saying black and white, really grayscale. And since it spans a larger range of wavelengths, it has a sharper resolution, about 15 meters instead of 30 meters. And then there's some bands that are gathering thermal infrared, which is long wavelength infrared, not close to the visible spectrum, further away. And those two bands are like 100-meter resolution. And then, we didn't talk about this, but I included some information in here about the satellite's orbit. The What we said was it takes about 2 weeks. You can get a picture of the same point on the surface of the Earth once about every 2 weeks, and here it's 16 days to be more precise, about every 16 days, and but the satellite, the Landsat 8 satellite, takes about 99 minutes to complete one orbit, which means it can do about 14 orbits a day. So it's oh man, I wish I had a globe. So here's the Earth, and the Landsat satellite is going around the Earth, and as it's going around the Earth, of course the Earth is rotating, so it's taking pictures of swaths of the Earth's surface, little strips of the Earth's surface as it goes around and around, and as the Earth rotates, it's getting slightly different strips, and there's a little bit of overlap between the strips, between the orbits, the portion of the Earth, and there's a lot more overlap near the poles than there is near the equator, and that has to do with the fact that it's orbiting in more of an orbit that's more like north-south oriented axis to the east-west. Did you guys hear about the what is this called? The Starlink. So this is one of SpaceX, Elon Musk's company, SpaceX, deploying hundreds of these little tiny, well, they're not tiny, they're decent sized communication satellites into lower Earth orbit, and the goal is to create satellite internet network with low latency. The problem with satellite internet right now is it's pretty high latency because the satellites are so far away from the surface of the Earth. It takes even traveling at the speed of light, it takes longer for information to get there and get back. So you can pretty much get satellite internet anywhere in the United States, but you have high latency. So his goal is to put these satellites into low orbit. The benefit is, the downside is you need more satellites in order to get coverage, but the flip side of that is you get lower latency because they're closer, and you can get higher bandwidth because each satellite is responsible for a smaller portion of the surface of the Earth. So it's exciting things. I also, anybody hear this story? There was a story recently about a planned mission. I want to say it was a joint mission between SpaceX and NASA, and they were going to send a satellite to an asteroid that is essentially, this asteroid is sort of like the core of the Earth. The core of the Earth is mostly iron and nickel. So the idea is this asteroid is mostly metal, and it it said the value of the material in the satellite, or this asteroid, is something like 100, not trillion, 100 quintillion dollars or something like that. And when I read that, I was like, I've heard about people saying about the idea of mining satellites, using spacecraft to mine asteroids and bring that material back to Earth, and that could be cost effective. And I was like, is it really? But when I read that, I was like, yep, this is gonna happen. We're gonna be mining asteroids. It's only a matter of time. And all right, so back to this, and then each Landsat image or scene represents a surface dimensions of about 180 kilometers square. So I think this is important to know. And normalized difference vegetation index. This is something that, you know, anybody who does GIS is going to encounter NDVI. Well, I shouldn't say that. Anybody who does GIS for doing you know, work involving agriculture or work involving forestry or urban planning, those sort of things, you're going to encounter NDVI. It's a really important metric. What else did I include here? Let me see. Let me go back up here. I went through these. Oops. No, I don't care about transitions. What? I went through these first slides pretty quickly. Oh, so there's selection tools here. You know the difference between select by attribute and select by location. I didn't put anything on here about the space-time cubes. Remember those? Space-time cubes. Yeah, I didn't put anything on here, which should be your clue that I'm not going to ask you any questions about space-time cubes. I think one thing I learned this semester is I think Intro GIS should focus exclusively on two-dimensional GIS. The three-dimensional stuff is, well, you know, the raster calculations, calculating aspect, hillshade, slope, those sort of things. But they produce a two-dimensional layer. And, I don't know, the space-time cube, that just seems to be a distraction in an intro level. So I won't ask you any questions about space-time cubes. But I might ask you about these other tools, kernel density, optimized hotspot analysis. So we encountered those when we did analysis of crime in Philadelphia. I thought this was a cool picture. I put this in here. You know, so aspect is the compass direction of downward slope on in a landscape, and this is a picture that shows that, you know, aspect is a function of physical geology. You know, what creates terrain's aspect? It has to do with, you know, the rock layers that are there and millions of years of erosion. But, you know, this becomes the tapestry for biology, for biological life, and aspect can affect biological communities. So here, this is a cool picture that shows these densely treed areas on the. I couldn't tell you which side that is. Looks, maybe it could be the northern slope of this hill here. Has a northern aspect. I'm guessing because it looks kind of dry. Wherever this looks like it's somewhere out west. Got sage in the foreground, and when you have areas that are dry, you know, an aspect that points north is going to get less sunlight, so it's going to have more soil moisture. It's not going to have as much evaporation. If you ever go anywhere where, you know, it's, well, out west where it's drier climate, and you guys know what a glacial erratic is? When if you're in an area that's been subjected to glaciation in the past, the glacier, of course, as it's advancing, is carrying lots of debris with it, and at the end of the glacier, where it's melting as fast as it's advancing, you have these remnants called moraines, where the debris that they're carrying along gets dropped. But you can also have glacial erratics, which are like, you know, big boulders they could carry along, and then when the glacier recedes, the boulders are just there. So you'll have like just this giant boulder that just doesn't belong there, just sitting out in the middle. And when you see these in dry landscapes, you'll oftentimes see trees growing on the northern side, the north-facing side of these boulders. It's basically these trees are growing in the shadows of these boulders because there's significantly more soil moisture there. It's really cool. All right, so back down here again. I put in, we talked about land cover classification, and we looked specifically at this data set that's maintained by this consortium called the Medium Resolution Land Characteristics Consortium, MRLC. And we went to their website, and I gave you the link to this website in the lesson on Sakai. And so this consortium has this product called the National Land Cover Database, NLCD, and this database uses an algorithm and pixel values from satellite imagery or aerial imagery. I think they're using NAPE imagery to classify the land cover or land use, well, it's related to land use, for each pixel. And there are 20 different classifications. And you probably can't see this, but if you open these slides and maximize it, you'll be able to see the legend is right here. So this is, I just clipped a little piece of this this product, which is that's the Susquehanna River in central Pennsylvania. So the red areas are developed areas. So this is Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. This is York, and this is Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So I took this picture because I grew up around here, and it says cultivated crops. Most of this is cultivated crops. Yep, it's farmland. And down here, a lot of those are Amish farms, and up here, Amish farms. Anyway, you you see a picture like this, you should have, I mean, when you see this, you know it's not satellite imagery. You know it's satellite imagery that's been processed. And when you see stuff like this, you should know that what you're seeing are classes, that these are pixels that are assigned to different classes. And an example where that's done is land cover classification. That's very different than here. This is NDVI. Each of these pixel values are continuous values on a scale between 0 and 255 or something like that. And the greener a pixel is, the more the higher the NDVI, which correlates with vegetation. So these pixel values are on a continuous scale, and here the pixel values are one of 20 possible values for classifications. I put in a little bit about layouts. You've done a lot with layouts and several assignments that involved you creating layouts of maps you created. And so here, just a summary of the elements that you can find in the layout. Legends, scale bars, chart frames, map frames, north arrows. You can even have tables and text and shapes, geometric shapes. So just summarizing some of the stuff that you find in layouts. And the point of a layout are these are things that are meant to be printed. Or more generally, let's say meant to be shared. Not necessarily printed, I suppose, because you might just share a PDF of your map these days. All right. And I decided to finish up these slides with this. So I was thinking, what's like one thing that would be good for you to remember when you finish up first semester introductory GIS. And so this geographer, Waldo Tobler, he I think he died recently, but he's got this statement which has become known as the first law of geography, and it goes something like, this: everything is related to everything else, but near things are more related than distant things. So it's kind of a statement of ecology, right? Isn't that like you could read that in an ecology textbook? Everything is related to everything else, but near things are more related than distant things. And so you think of map making, cartography, geography, of studying the features of the earth, the features on the surface of the earth, and these things are coupled to one another. There's physical processes and biological processes that weave this all together. So it's not just that life is like this thing that's interdependent. The physical world is interdependent as well. You get a I guess I won't beat this to death. I think you get the point. But this is a pretty. It's like simultaneously profound and obvious. It's a pretty cool statement. So I wanted you to know that. So I put that here on the last slide. Okay, so review. It's a bunch of multiple choice questions, I think a couple true-false questions, a couple matching type questions where you got to match like tool names with their definitions or what they do. And there's just one short answer question. Okay, it's one short answer question. So mostly multiple choice or matching, couple true false, and one short answer question. All right, all on Sakai. So the test will be administered via Sakai, and if you want to come to the lab to take it, I highly encourage you to do that. I haven't added Friday to the sign-up sheet yet. I'll do that after we're done here, so that you can sign up if you are able and to come to the lab on Friday. Otherwise, we'll do it like last time, where I will proctor via Zoom. Okay. There, we had some hiccups last time with images that some of you weren't able to see. So what I did to get around that was, instead of embedding the images in the exam as you would in a web page that just shows along the question, if there's an image, I attached it to the question. So that means there'll be like a question, and then there'll be a little attachment below it, and you gotta click that attachment and it'll open up in a new window. Okay, that seems to work pretty well. I haven't encountered a situation where that doesn't work yet. All right, so we got about 20 minutes, and I can take some questions from you, and if any of you want to ask questions about your project ideas, this will be a good time to do that. So the floor is open. What do you want to ask about? I'll be patient. Does anybody want to share what their project idea is? I'd love to hear that. So Alexis is asking me, the final project requires us to use two tools. Can those be any geoprocessing tools, or do they have to be analysis ones? So why don't I say this? If you want to know for sure whether your analysis fulfills that requirement, just tell me what it's going to be. You know, which tools you're going to use. So the general answer to your question, Alexis, is yes. They have to be analysis tools, but there's some tools that which are kind of like borderline. I don't know if they'd be considered analysis or not, but they might fulfill it. So let me tell you what's not a suitable tool. Like if you use a select by attribute, you know, that's not using an analysis tool. Okay, so that doesn't qualify as like one of the two tools. But if you're using the buffer tool or the clip tool or the dissolve tool or the erase tool or the summarize within tool or the near tool, you know, those are the tools I'm talking about. Okay, that I want you to conceptualize an analysis that requires to think about geospatial relationships. Okay. You know, one thing where there's a little bit of gray area here is it's like, you know, the select by location tool. I can imagine a situation where you could accomplish the same thing with the select by location tool as you could by using let's say like the clip tool. You could have like polygons that represent the locations, but those locations could also be in the attribute table of the thing that you want to use. Is the lab only open Tuesday and Thursday still? So Cam, yes. This week that's the plan. All right, Tuesday. Well, it'll be open on Friday too for the exam during class time. So let me take a look at next week, and maybe there's a way I can expand access even more next week. Cam, were you thinking about like a specific day or time that you wanted to be in there? Let's see, Alexis is saying, can the data we use be a set that you created for the practical too? Yes, it can, but you're going to have to think of, so you can't, you know, it's got to be a unique question. You can't be like, you know, okay, so if, you know, so one of the questions in the practical was, how many people live close to the Appalachian Trail? So if your project is, I want to find how many people live close to Acadia National Park, like, no, that's not really unique, you know, because it's basically the same analysis with the same data, just with different parameters. So, you know, if you're thinking about some different question, then yeah, you can use that data, because ultimately that data was publicly available data. You know, it's not my data. I got it from, I think the Park Service data came from Esri. What else? I feel a little low energy today. You know, someday, well, some of you are already there. When you have kids, and I got my son woke up at 1 a.m. and it's just one of those times I got up to help him out, and then I couldn't go back to sleep. So I've been up since 1 a.m. I've gotten a lot done today. but I'm about ready to call it a day. What else? Anything else? Did you guys hear the big news on the COVID front? That Pfizer announced that their vaccine is more than 90% effective. That's huge. It's huge. So now, the thing about I've been biased toward Pfizer since the start, and the reason is because I don't know if I told you guys this. I think maybe I did. That my first job after I graduated from college was I worked at Wyeth Pharmaceuticals making influenza vaccine. So I worked in this big industrial lab making influenza vaccine. And, Wyeth got bought out by Pfizer. Like 10 years ago, Wyeth got bought out by Pfizer. So Wyeth is a subsidiary of Pfizer. So when I started reading about the different vaccines, and Pfizer wasn't one of the ones that were in this Operation Warp Speed. I don't think they were. I don't think they were in this Operation Warp Speed. And they were kind of, just doing their thing in the background. And I remember telling my wife, I was like, yeah, better watch out for Pfizer. They're creeping up. And they just came out of nowhere with this vaccine, and it's apparently super effective, and it's going to be a challenge to manufacture and distribute because it's got to be stored at minus 70 degrees or something like that. But, in the United States, they'll distribute it and we'll be able to get it. So, are you going to get your vaccine? I certainly am. And it'll be a happy day. So, okay, let's see. Sean says, how many, so would a question like how many gun owners live near U.S. borders be too similar to the practical question? No, so that's similar in the sense that I can, it's not like you can't use the same tools that you used in some elsewhere in the class. In that case, the data set is completely different. Okay, so yeah, that's interesting. Would you be interested in like, is like gun ownership higher near borders than it is in the interior? Something like that. So Noelle is saying she's working with USGS earthquake data. I have come up with 3 questions so far, but the one I'm wanting to focus on is how many earthquakes of magnitude 5.0 occur within 100 miles of populations of 100,000 or more. Right, so you could totally do that, and there's I'm not saying you should do this, but one other thing that I've heard, and I haven't studied it myself, so I don't know how significant this is, but I've heard that there's been increased earthquake activity near where they're doing drilling for and hydraulic fracturing. And I think I heard that in relation to activities in Oklahoma. So that's interesting because it's like we don't think of, we know that human activity affects the earth in very significant ways. I mean, all you gotta do is fly over the United States to see all the agriculture and subdivisions, but we don't usually think of our mining activities as causing earthquakes, but apparently that there were earthquakes that were caused by the Three Gorges Dam reservoir when it was filling. It impounded so much water that the weight of the water in the reservoir caused earthquakes. It's crazy. So Sean says, I feel like the closer to the border, the less gun owners there are. So it could be, it's worth looking into. Um, gun ownership. You know, I mean, there's so many things you can study, and there's so much data out there. And I'd say, okay, so if you guys formulate an idea, you should do some poking around to see what kind of data is out there before you commit. Since there's so many different topics and so many different data sets, you don't want to like corner yourself on a project idea that's just exceedingly hard to get quality data for. All right. So I don't see any other questions here. Okay. So tomorrow afternoon, 1 to 3, the lab will be open if you want it, but make sure you sign up by tomorrow morning. Otherwise, I won't tell Hannah to make sure she's there. And I can't be there tomorrow afternoon to be in her place. So make sure you sign up if you want to use the lab tomorrow afternoon. So Wednesday, let's continue with this kind of discussion. All right. So if you have ideas or questions about data, let's see what we can do, and maybe we should do a Zoom session. That might be more conducive to that kind of work. I'll think about that. The downside is I can't do ArcGIS Pro from my well, I can do Zoom from this computer. I should be able to figure it out. So stay tuned. Maybe we'll do a Zoom session on Wednesday. But come with some questions. All right. Thursday is all day. Sign up for a work period. It's your time to work on the project, and then the same will be true the following week. There maybe. So I'll think on this, and maybe what I do is I have the lab available and open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday next week, and then Tuesday afternoon and Thursday, and we'll just have a sign-up sheet, and I'll be there, and it's your time to work. All right. All right. So I'll see you Wednesday. All right. Bye-bye.